Chapter 35. The Corpse Flower. From a distance, a distinct fragrance wafted to our noses, prompting us to wonder if the flower was poisonous. Typically, poisonous plants and animals are brightly colored, and this corpse flower had red leaves and green flowers, vivid as if dripping with water, suggesting it might indeed be toxic. Considering this, I urged everyone to put on their gas masks. Fatty commented skeptically, "I don't think this flower is poisonous. Usually, poisonous things are small, but this thing is huge, like a big barrel. I reckon it's a man-eating flower." Shirley Yang countered, "It can't be a man-eater. There are no insects around it. If it survived by consuming animals, it would have died out long ago. The coffin made from the sacred tree of Kunlun must provide it with enough nutrients." Dismissing the concerns, Fatty grunted, "Who cares what it is? I'll shoot at it and smash it. Then any danger will be gone. After that, we can go over and see what the most beautiful woman of the western regions looks like in her coffin." Professor Chin urgently interjected, "Absolutely not. We'd rather not venture any further than destroy this precious corpse flower." I adjusted the searchlight to illuminate the area around the coffin more clearly for Professor Chen and the others. To my surprise, I found the edge of the stone beam inscribed with numerous characters in the Ghost Cave script, with hundreds of characters densely packed together. This discovery was significant. Throughout the entire ancient city, including the temple and underground palace, there were few inscriptions, mainly murals telling stories. There were some Ghost Cave texts on the jade eyes in the temple, but unfortunately, we had no chance to examine them before they were broken. It was unexpected to find so many characters here on the stone beam. Characters are a fundamental symbol through which humans convey information. The information from ancient murals gives us an intuitive understanding, while the written text contains more precise information. Deciphering this Ghost Cave text would offer a shortcut to understanding the Jingjue civilization. Professor Chin urged his students to take detailed notes, recording the Ghost Cave text from the stone beam in parts. Luckily, the characters were engraved large enough to be read easily with the illumination from the searchlight without needing to get too close, and Shirley was also photographing them with her camera. Fatty and I, with nothing to do and forbidden by Professor Chun to smoke in this place, simply sat on the ground, waiting while the others worked. It seemed our archaeological mission had reached its endpoint. The gains were significant. The well-preserved murals in the corridor of statues alone would shock the archaeological world for years, not to mention the bottomless cavern, the coffin of sacred Kunlun wood, and the ancient corpse flower, all of which would keep these scholars busy for a long time. Without proper protective measures, we couldn't expect to open the coffin and see the renowned beauty of the western regions. Having recently seen Prince Pu Mo's coffin in the sacred well, where Professor Chin strictly prohibited opening it, any further actions would likely require approval from the authorities, a process I would not be part of. Unfortunately, Halaigua had died in the valley. I thought of how excited he would have been to witness all of this and felt a pang of regret and self-blame. Maybe if I had been a little quicker. But then again, life is devoid of what-ifs. If I hadn't executed those Vietnamese intelligence agents back then, maybe I would have become a battalion commander by now. The past hovered before my eyes, and thinking about it only unsettled me more. Noticing my distracted state, Fatty nudged my shoulder. "Old who? What are those two kids up to over there?" His question snapped me back to reality, and I looked across to see Chu Jan and Suddy Peng walking along the stone beam. Weren't they supposed to avoid touching the queen's coffin? Professor Chen reassured us, "It's fine. They're not going to examine the coffin. The stone beam is covered in dust, obscuring the inscriptions. They are just clearing the dust and will be right back. They are wearing gas masks, so there's no danger." I was about to call the young students back. I could go in their stead, but Professor Chin insisted it wasn't necessary. The Ghost Cave script on the stone beam is significant. You are not trained for this. If you touch it carelessly, it could lead to trouble. Chu Jan and the others can gently brush away the dust with the paintbrushes they have. They are quick and can do it within a minute or two. Still, something felt off. My instincts, usually sharp, told me that trouble was brewing. Why had those earlier British explorers not taken such a valuable sacred coffin? What happened to all of them except for the one survivor, driven mad? The cave seemed still and unthreatening, but what would happen if one got too close to the queen's coffin? I couldn't wait any longer. I had to bring Chujian and the other student back. Just as I was about to call out to the two of them, it was already too late. Walking one behind the other on the stone beam, Suddy Pung suddenly bent over, picked up a rock, took 2 quick steps, and fiercely smashed it down on Chu Jian's head. Without even a grunt, Chu Jian's body twisted and he fell into the bottomless abyss beneath the beam. The incident happened so abruptly that no one had time to intervene. Before we could process what had occurred, we saw Suddy Pung turn his head, rip off his gas mask with a strangely sinister smile, then stride briskly toward the end of the stone beam where the coffin lay. He took the same stone and fiercely bashed his own temple, blood gushing forth like a breached dam. After staggering a couple of times, he collapsed onto the coffin of the Jingjue queen, his condition unclear. Everyone was left in a stunned silence by the bloody and eerie spectacle. What had happened to Suddy Pung? How did the well-mannered student suddenly become a murderer, taking the life of his closest friend before apparently trying to end his own at the queen's coffin? I exclaimed, "This is bad. The boy must have been possessed by an evil spirit. Fatty, get the black donkey hoof, the antidote for evil spirits. It looks like he's still alive. There's still time to save him." Professor Qian had witnessed the horror unfold with his 2 students, one dead, the other grievously injured and motionless at the stone beam's edge, his life hanging in the balance. It was too much to take in. Overcome by distress, he fainted. Yi Yisun rushed to support him. Aside from crying, she seemed unable to do anything else. Aware that saving the injured was the top priority, I prepared myself for a possible encounter with supernatural forces. I instructed Fatty and Shirley Yang to assist the professor while I armed myself and donned a gas mask as a precaution. After all, if the corpse flower was poisonous, I wasn't going to take any chances. With my mind set on a swift rescue, I anticipated that ancient protective talismans like a black donkey hoof and glutinous rice might aid in warding off formidable evil spirits. I didn't allow myself time to hesitate. I stepped onto the stone beam, which was 3 meters wide and spanned over the seemingly bottomless chasm below. One look down was enough to make my hair stand on end. Halfway across the beam, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Fatty and Shirley Yang coming after me. I questioned why they weren't looking after Professor Chun. Fatty explained, "We can't tell what lurks up here on this beam, and I'm worried for you to face it alone. Besides, it would be difficult for you to carry Suddy Pung by yourself. Let's move him together and then get out quickly to avoid any further accidents." I realized that with Suddy Pung bleeding and time running out, we couldn't afford any delay. I beckoned them to follow, and the 3 of us quickly made our way to the end of the stone beam, where the coffin lay. As we neared the corpse flower, its otherworldly beauty was striking. Its petals and leaves were so vivid that they captivated and shook us to the core. Remembering Professor Chin's warning of an evil spirit within the flower, and faced with such an urgent situation, I dismissed its rarity with a curse. Convinced it might be the cause of the mischief, I began hacking at the corpse flower with my entrenching shovel, slicing it apart until it oozed black fluid, and then I stopped. Shirley Yang arrived to see I had already destroyed the flower, too late to intervene, and sighed in resignation. "Well, it's done. Let's focus on saving him now." "Exactly," I said, reaching for the emergency bandages. "Let's stop the bleeding for Suddy Pong." I intended to quickly wrap his wounds and carry him back for treatment. Fatty checked Suddy Ping's neck for a pulse and sadly announced, "No need to hustle. It's too late. There's no pulse. We're just a step behind." In frustration, I slammed my hand onto the coffin, exclaiming, "Damn it! How are we supposed to explain this to their parents? This will crush their families." Unexpectedly, my slap seemed to jolt Suddy Ping's corpse, which abruptly sat up like it was electrified. With eyes bulging red, he pointed to the Jingjue Queen's coffin and uttered, She's alive." The 3 of us, Shirley Yang, Fatty, and I, were all startled. Suddy Pong was clearly without a pulse just moments ago. What could have possibly revived him? Instinctively, I reached into my pocket for a black donkey's hoof to strike him, but after speaking, Suddy Pong stiffened and fell back to the ground, appearing to be truly dead this time.